non piudrai farfelo ogni amoroso, notte giorno di torno girano, delle belle turbando al riposo, Narcisetto a tuo cibo d'amor, delle belle turbando al riposo, Narcisetto a tuo cibo d'amor.
Welcome college football fans to another weekly installment of
Your Team Sucks Donkey Balls
with Dr. Balls.
So we have to welcome them to Smack It Off the podcast because their team sucks donkey balls. Would you agree?
Yes. Absolutely.
Absolutely, their team sucks.
So anyway, we got four coaches, and we have something we're going to do tonight that we've never done before.
Oh,
and I'm just going to go ahead and throw it. I'm going to throw it out there.
What's that?
We have a coach that's going to be sucking on some donkey balls this week that actually won.
Ooh, that's special. You know, that's like when the number one team loses and then still somehow gets ranked number two, which has happened a couple times in the last 20 years. That's kind of a similar thing, maybe.
Yep. Well, anyway, you want me to go ahead and open door number one?
Open door number one, baby.
Let's do it.
Here they come, your team sucks donkey balls. Bouncing, 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 here they come. Open your mouth and get a big bunch. Suck them, suck them, suck them, suck them.
He's got like the life expectancy of how long Pat stayed in the Army, you know?
I mean, it's so fucked up that they were where they were, last year. And to be does he even make it out of the season?
No, it's crazy. I mean, the thing about it is they talked big smack. They made, a lot of traction off their big gaudy record last year, but, they get at every chance they've had to establish they really are somebody. They've been champions because there's been no effort, right? Nobody cares about what's on the front of the jersey. Nobody cares about each other. I mean, in sports, man, I look at my buddy, I say, man, we're going to do this. Fuck this. I don't like to lose. We're going to do this. And I just don't see that out of them guys. Now our guest, Doug, that was one of our guests earlier. Are they back in there with us?
Timothy's here, but I think that he's driving right now and he's getting a lot of noise, and I think he's muted himself. And Landon is running on Landon time.
Oh well, that's fine.
Landon never comes in right at the beginning, does he?
No, it's like Tulsa time. You know what I'm saying? He's living on.
He's
Tulsa
running
time.
on Landon time, and we're saving door number 4 for Landon. Hopefully, he makes
just
it
for him. Well, man, I got to say, if you're at Florida State, man, there's a lot of resources there. It ain't like he didn't have any roster. I mean, there was turnover, but but not so extreme that you can't just go 0-3 in your first 3 games at Florida State, a former powerhouse. I mean, it's a real embarrassment. I mean, the whole state of Florida is really embarrassed because you've got a shift in power from Florida and Miami and Florida State down to UCF and USF, and now Miami is resurgent. So he's missed a historic opportunity. And if you're the ADs of either Florida or especially Florida State with their lackluster showing, I mean, then you got to consider shucking this guy.
I agree. This is Bowden set a standard at Florida State that Jimbo had his moment. I think it was a lucky moment, but it was still a moment. And I don't see any moments coming at this rate.
Nah. I mean, you
First
got
off, Florida State does not need to be a transfer portal school. They need to concentrate on recruiting. Not that they don't need to use the transfer portal, but not for their whole fucking roster.
There's no need for it. There's too much talent in Florida. I mean, there's enough to spread between 4 or 5 schools, and a dominant school could get a third of the blue chips from Florida, would have a hell of a program. And even right now, he's got guys that during recruitment that were characterized as possibly being transcendent players, yet he hasn't got that out of them. So isn't that the real key? Even if he could recruit guys that were 5 stars, blue chips from Florida, and they're there, right, and get them to come to Florida State, he hasn't demonstrated the ability to either utilize them or develop them or keep them.
You're right. or even get them to buy into a fucking bowl game against the first team out. Being the first team out against arguably the other first team out, which was Georgia. I mean, that was a unbelievable opportunity for Florida State. Had they win in that game, had they fucking won that game,
Yeah.
they would have come into this season. Everybody would have said Florida State was the best team last year, and they got fucked out of getting into the playoffs.
Oh, that
That's what
transformed the narrative.
That's what the narrative would have been, but instead the narrative was, yeah, they didn't even the players didn't believe in themselves enough to even show up to the game, and Georgia fucking pounded that ass.
I will give. I don't know if I'm on, but I will give Mike Norvell a little bit of leeway on that particular game.
You're on
because I got to give Mike Norvell a little bit of leeway on that Georgia game. I understand why his players felt the way that it did. It felt rigged against them, and they decided not to play it because.
But at the same time, that is the biggest bowl game outside of the playoffs. And what better way to shove it in everybody's face than to show up and play your ass off?
Yeah.
It's unfortunate that that's where people are now, but that's what's believed is that those games aren't relevant.
Now, Alabama.
I think most of those games aren't relevant, but that, because of the way it all went down, was the most relevant game outside of playoff games.
Hey, can y'all hear me?
Yeah,
yes.
Healthy Florida State, a Florida State that fields their team. Maybe not without Jordan Travis, but I think with Jordan Travis that they were a better team than Georgia last year too. That's really unfortunate for them.
I don't think they were better. I think Georgia was deeper from top to bottom. There might have been individuals on Florida State that were better than any individual that you might name on Georgia, but as a whole, the roster of Georgia was on another level compared to Florida State.
Florida State's roster was really good, though. They had like 11 NFL draft picks. I mean, those guys.
Landon, you have anything to add to Florida State?
Well, I mean, the only thing I'll say on it is, like, you know, at the end of the day, I mean, I understand they were pissed off, and I get all that. I really do. But the thing is, when you decide to sit out like that and everybody just quits and they just say, well, you know, we're pissed off, so I'm going to take my toy and go home, you know, and you take that approach, hey, that's fine. You want to do that? Hey, cool. You know, go ahead. But also in the same respect, there's a reason why Florida State's currently sitting at 0-3, and the culture right there is not looking great. I mean, when you take
I like to say that negativity followed into this season, but maybe it was just the culture, like you said.
I mean, when you take all these guys out of the portal, and look, this has been my complaint, as I've said on Clemson. Again, nobody is asking the Clemson Tigers to take 30 to 45 kids out of the portal like Florida State likes to do, and especially Colorado. No one has ever said that. But 3 to 5 players damn sure will not hurt you. They won't. But the thing is, when you take in all these portal guys like Florida State has, these guys don't give a shit about Florida State. They're there for one reason and one reason only. They're there for money.
They might even be poisoned, Landon. To your point, some of those guys might even be poisoned. There might be a
reason.
Yeah,
exactly. So basically, when you roll the dice and you take all the portal guys and everything like that, hey, you may have that 1 year where it all works, where Keon Coleman's and all those guys turn out to be like studs, and they'd be, you know, really good players for you. That can work. But then you got the other side of it where they turn out to be complete and utter cancers in the locker room, and then the whole thing is just sideways at that point, and it just goes south. And that's what they're dealing with right now between – hell, they got 5 guys from Alabama. These guys at Alabama were never going to play. They weren't. Terrence Ferguson at offensive line, he was not going to play here. Like Sean Murphy at linebacker. Malik Benson is their number 1 receiver. Everybody assumed last year he was terrible at Alabama because Milroe was the quarterback. No, he was terrible because he just wasn't very good.
Terrence Ferguson chose Oklahoma.
Yeah, I mean, it was just terrible because he just wasn't very good, and that's fine. But when you rely on it so much and you don't establish that culture of bringing somebody in, I mean, Tim, I had this discussion with you I think a few weeks ago. You know, Jordan Travis was the quarterback that basically held together Florida State under Mike Norvell. Who is the other quarterback that Mike Norvell brought in and he recruited out of high school developed and sat there and he groomed him. Who is that guy? They don't have that guy.
Now,
Tate Rodemaker transferred to Southern Miss. That was the backup, and then I think they got the guy Brock Glenn that started in the Orange Bowl, and I think he's now third string on the roster behind Luke Kromenhoit or something like that. I mean, it's just, and so now you got DJU over there, and I mean, his confidence is shot. That his confidence been shot, and it's only worse now. So, I mean, you just look at their team. Florida State's just not even a good team. They don't have anybody really you would even I mean, they're just not a good team
on their team, but they just don't look like they are connected like a team needs to be. I think that's their biggest issue.
Yeah, 100%.
Now, I don't think listen, I think it's fair to point out Mike Norvell's a really good coach. He has a really good track record. I think this year doesn't really reflect the job that he's done at Florida State because, I mean, let me remind you what he inherited, what Jimbo did to that program on the way out. And it was going to take a few years. And he got the job during COVID. He inherited.
Wait, didn't he take it over for Willie Taggart?
Yes.
Okay.
So, yeah, it was also double burned because Willie Taggart was.
Now, he was awful. 100%. Willie Taggart was a joke.
Yes. And then, so he inherited during COVID, which basically made him skip a whole year of roster building. Okay. And then he built a pretty good team, mostly using the portal. And they had a really good 2 deep, and they had 2 really good years in a row for Florida State based on what had been happening. And so I'm not going to sit here and say that he's blameless. Obviously, you're the coach, and 0-3 at Florida State's unacceptable. And they haven't played opponents that should have them at 0-3. Now, I think all the opponents they've played are pretty good teams. They're nothing special. Memphis is pretty good. I think they're the second best team in the American behind Tulane.
We predicted that.
I think that Boston College, they probably, all intents and purposes, man, they don't get that really awful fumble that they clearly recovered against Missouri before the end of halftime.
Mm-hmm.
They may win that game against Missouri. That was a 6-point game.
Boston College isn't a bad team. I mean, you're looking at an 8-4 team, I think.
Yeah, these are Florida State. It's not like Florida State's getting dog walked either. They just look like a team. I think by the end of the year, there's a chance, and I'm not saying it will happen, but there's a chance that team's going to look and have a very different feel to it at the end of the year. But right now, they are just not connected enough. And it's the small things that are hurting them. We've seen flashes here and there, right? We've seen some flashes. You're like, oh, that looked pretty good. Oh, okay. They can rush the passer on the defensive line. Man, that offense, when it's clicking, it can do some real things. And then it just doesn't stay there consistently. And I think the bye came at a bad time for him, if I'm being honest. I think you would rather just get right back at it and just hit it and then get a bye after a win. I think it's really tough to go 0-2 and go into a bye. You're going to feel really defeated. Well, Boston College did kind of lay the hammer on Florida State, so I'll take back what I said in that regard. But
they control that game a lot.
Yeah, those other 2 games were competitive, and they are good. They're good teams this year. Okay, Florida State's schedule hasn't been cake through the first 3 weeks, but it's good enough to where they should at least be 2-1 at the worst in my eyes.
Yeah.
Now, what do they see in ukulele? That's what I don't understand. What did they see?
It's not Robert. The thing is when you invest so much into a guy, and I'm not in no way do I mean they threw out $3 million for ukulele to come to Florida State. I'm not saying that at all, but they did invest something in him. And the problem is when you invest money into somebody like that, you were going to literally give them every chance you possibly can until they just absolutely fall flat on their face.
Big thing is also what's behind DJ is just not an answer, and it's obvious. But here is the thing, okay? DJ was not this bad at Oregon State, and the last year he was at Clemson, he was not this bad either. So the disconnect here is why has DJU regressed into a different player than we've seen the last 2 years? Because the talk right now about DJU is this guy might be one of the biggest busts ever out of high school. Like, as if this guy's Tate Martell or something. This dude in the last 2 years had 50 touchdowns to 13 interceptions. This guy was no, as Dabo called him, he was no he's no slapdick. He's not a terrible player. Okay, it hasn't worked out so far at Florida State. How much at Clemson, and then I had a new coordinator at Oregon State, and now I have another coordinator with another offense. How much is that a mix into this? But I don't think that DJU, I think we're focusing on DJU because he's an easy target. Obviously, I think the issue is much bigger than DJU because I don't think I think if DJU transferred to, I don't know, let's say Milroe said, deuces, homeboys, I'm not staying at this Alabama crap because of what happened, and for godforsaken reason DJU ends up being your quarterback. I don't think he would look like this at Alabama or at some other places that already have a really nice core and foundation. That's
because they would protect him with play calling. They got a better coaching staff, so therefore they would protect him with play calling, and everything he would do would be out of deception. So therefore he wouldn't be getting killed trying to unleash the ball, and he'd already be locked into a guy.
I think the issue with him is DJ just has no confidence anymore. I mean, he doesn't. I will say this: as much as I give Clemson fans shit, I will say I bought into the DJU hype, dude. When he came in for Trevor Lawrence during that game in 2020, and they played Notre Dame, I think they still lost, but he came in, threw for like over 400 yards. I was like, okay, this is the next one. This is him. Like, damn. I mean, I was pretty confident, dude. I even picked Clemson to beat Georgia in 2021. Like, I was pretty confident in the guy.
Well, he sucks.
Well, God bless Florida State. I'm fixing to open to. I'm going to open door number 2 now.
Here they come, your team sucks donkey balls. Bouncing, 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 here they come. Open your mouth and get a big bunch. Suck them, 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 suck them.
And we have Billy Napier. Now, guys, in my lifetime, I haven't seen a big-name coach survive losing to Kentucky twice, let alone 3 times, right? So he's been the most charmed human being that I ever saw in the SEC, that you could lose to your former doormats on a regular basis, and I predict he will again, right? And the funny thing about it to me is, and why they sunk donkey balls, is there has been some effort, right? But in general, I see mismanagement and bad play calling and stupid stuff, not lining up, just bad discipline. I think they suck donkey balls, guys.
Yeah. So the first thing I want to say is, this segment used to be mine, and it has sure made a different. The songs and things are a little updated. That's quite impressive. I'm going to say this. The only thing I'm going to defend about Billy Napier is a proven good coach. He knows what good culture looks like. He knows how to build a program. I just think I don't think Florida is a good I think Florida has a little Texas A&M in it, if you know what I mean. There's something wrong there from the very core foundation. And it doesn't take a good coach to make this work. It takes a special coach. And Billy Napier is not a special coach because it just doesn't look right. I don't know how you fix this problem if you're Florida. It feels a little bit like the Dallas Cowboys. You know what I mean, Landon? You know what I'm saying here? Like, it feels like Florida doesn't have a real chance, is what I'm getting at. I don't know how much.
Can I ask, did they poison their future coaching hires by the way they treated Dan Mullen?
No, Dan Mullen, I will get the only thing I will say, Dan Mullen was a good coach at Florida, but the way he behaved like a 4-year-old child the last year and a half he was there, it was an unavoidable situation. They had to get rid of him. Because you can't act like that he did. Like, he acted crazy. Like, I've never seen anything like that. You could tell his culture was dying.
Yeah.
Remember, it was awful, brother.
Yeah,
like,
cousin Eddie carried himself terrible. I mean, he really did.
He did kind of look like Cousin Eddie, didn't he?
He was very immature after shit didn't necessarily go his way, and things like that. I mean, because look, I still want to be fair. Dan Mullen still won 10 games, or 9 to 10 games. What his last? How many years did he?
Until that last year where
Until
he
the year
lost.
before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he won. So he had. Let's see. He won 10 games, 11 games, and then he won 7 games, but made it to the Cotton Bowl and COVID with the condensed schedule. And then he just fell off a cliff in 21.
So they said he wasn't recruiting and that he wasn't spending the time recruiting that they wanted. Maybe a little bit of that's true, but they recruited fairly well, and the cupboard wasn't bare. But there was some key transfers that pissed some people off, and talk of the Bull Gators not liking him and stuff. I mean, to your point earlier, Tim, that it's like the Dallas Cowboys and that it's being poisoned from the top down. I'd have to say that somewhere in the trustees and the boosters is a poison that takes somebody that's equally as corrupt, such as Urban Meyer, to deal with.
Yeah, I don't know that I think that the Urban stuff is a little overblown, but I will say it takes somebody who can eat it, and not only just eat the bullshit, but can give it back to him, right? Like, it's like the Bill Parcells for a Jerry Jones, right? It takes somebody like that. It takes somebody who's strong-willed, strong-minded, and won't back down. That's what you need. And I think, honestly, they're talking about stuff like Jed Fish, and I really hope Jed Fish does not go to Florida. I really, really, really hope John Summerall, I hope that he does not go to Florida.
They're saying he's going to Kentucky. If they're saying if Stoops don't make a bowl, that he's liable to skip town, and Summerall come to Kentucky where he was the
Summerall is one of the best young coaches in college football. That guy is outstanding.
He was the former defensive coordinator at Kentucky, and
I'm very familiar with his history. And we'll talk more about him a little bit later because he had some pretty cool comments to say about a certain trip he made last week. But John Summerall is a very, very good coach. And, man, Kentucky will be certainly lucky. I like Mark Stoops, but that might be an upgrade, to be honest.
I think definitely would. He would bring an offensive scheme that I would actually, I'm sure we all would enjoy to watch. Right, Robert?
Oh, yeah. Well, if you could match a decent offense with a decent defense, you'd have something there.
Hey, Robert, they shouldn't have overturned that pick six in your eyes either, right? Because I thought that was a little surprising. I don't think it was an interception, but you can't call that on the field and overturn it with what we saw on video. There was nothing there to overturn that.
I'd agree with that, but I also think it touched the ground. But there was a few breaks that went both sides that game. That's why I haven't been wildly complaining about them online, because there were breaks that went our way. And plus, really what lost the game was the fumble by Vandegrift, right, in the end. People say that Kentucky should have went for it on 4th down inside their own 50 with 3 minutes to go.
No, not 4th and 8 with the way the defense was
Yes,
playing.
Exactly. I mean, you've got a great punter. You got a good defense. You had to go for it. I mean, they had to kick it.
All right,
what's up?
I know you think he should have went for it.
Oh, I 100% do. I definitely do. Look, man, you look. I understand you're playing like South Carolina or something like that, but dog, you were playing the number 1 team in the country. You got Georgia at home, and this is a chance to win. Now, look, do I have faith Kentucky would have made that? No, I don't at all. I really don't. I don't have any faith at all. Because of Brock Vandegrift at quarterback the whole night.
But you never know, though. You never know.
You still never know. Dude, you could throw it up. They could pass interference. You get an automatic first down. I mean –
but here's what they thought they knew.
You never know. And that's the thing. You never know. And makes so bad. I could understand it if it was 3rd and 8, you're at your 30-yard line.
But here's what they thought they knew.
What were you at, like the 45 or the 47?
47, I believe. But here's what they thought they knew, Landon. What they knew is that Georgia had 2 offensive linemen out, and that they had the best nose tackle in the country, right? And that the other defensive linemen for Kentucky, especially the ends, were good, if not great. So probably one of the best defensive lines in the country, top 3 in the SEC. And they knew that they were dominating the game on the front line on defense, and they figured that they would stop them, but they didn't, because Beck is a very.
Oh, by the way, Mike Bobo, moron. I don't know how. Like, that was such a bad play design that got that first down to seal that game for Georgia. They are so beyond lucky. That damn near could have been intercepted.
Yeah,
That's
I still
because the
don't
guy was out
understand
of
why
position.
Bobo didn't run it 3 times in a row, like just to run out clock or anything. Like,
Well, we may be talking about these guys. Let's hold this for the if for the next segment.
We were talking about Florida. So
Yeah.
now that we're talking about this game, this is a good way into
segue.
opening door
That's
number
right.
3.
Here they come, here they come. Your team sucks donkey balls. Bouncing, 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 here they come. Open your mouth and get a big bunch. Suck them, suck them, suck them, suck them, suck them, suck them, suck them.
And guys, to your point, behind door 3, we have the University of Georgia, Kirby Smart, and Mike Bobo in terms of they suck donkey balls in terms of their coaching against Kentucky, a team they should have crushed utterly.
Absolutely, 100%.
And this 100%. Is the first. This is the very first coach to get on donkey balls that actually won. And I'm going to turn this over to Landon and Tim, and I'm going to listen. And Robert, if you want to talk, I'm just going to listen, guys.
So I'll kind of start this off because obviously we play Georgia next and everything like that. And I've always been a huge advocate of Todd Monken. That was before Mike Bobo. I've always said the University of Georgia won their 2 natties, not because of Kirby Smart, not because of Stetson Bennett, not because of anything. They won those 2 natties because they made a hell of a hire and they got Todd Monken. Now, Todd Monken obviously is now in the NFL because he did such a hell of a job, clearly, and doing a good job too in the NFL. Did last year as well with the Ravens. So we now have Mike Bobo, and Mike Bobo. I mean, look, when Georgia is able to run the football, Mike Bobo is a pretty good offensive coordinator. He calls a pretty good game. I'll give him that. Dating back to even the days he was with Mark Richt, with Matthew Stafford, Joe Cox, Aaron Murray, all that fun jazz. Mike Bobo's calls a pretty good game when the run game is able to open up and get going.
Yeah, he is a better card game player when he has more cards than his opponent.
Yes, and look, I know a lot of people would say, well, yeah, I mean, obviously any offensive coordinator's got the run game going, is going to be able to open up the playbook. And true to a point, yes, but when you have to rely on it in order for the playbook to open up, that's where a problem can occur for Georgia. And what has happened with Georgia in a lot of these close games is they get in there and they can't run the football, and the whole offense, even with a future top 5 pick in Carson Beck at quarterback, even with that, it falls apart.
Oh, he's
now,
not.
Guys, I'd like to mention here.
Carson, that guy is not a top 5 pick. He's a late.
You don't think Carson Beck's going to go top 5?
No, not with the way he's played so far this year. His tape this year is abysmal. He's going to drop a lot. Unless he changes. Now, there's plenty of time to change that. But NFL scouts are not going to love the tape he's put on. His tape against Kentucky is so awful.
I got to mention this, though, guys. Of the front 7 of Kentucky that played in that game, 5 of those guys are going to go in the NFL and 2 or 3 in the first round, right? I mean,
not to credit Kentucky.
Yeah, you should do your research. We're talking J.J. Weaver. We're talking the All-American nose tackle. There's 3 other linebackers that are some of the best in the country and have great experience. That's a great team. The edge rushers. I mean, that's one of the best front 7s in the country and top 3 in the SEC. The next time that Kentucky's going to face, not Kentucky, but Georgia will face a front 7 as good as Kentucky's will probably be Alabama or Texas. So,
well, and Robert, that's my point that I'm making. I mean, look, hey, Kentucky may have a good front 7, and they obviously do. I mean, I saw what they did. Clemson has a good front 7. And there's a reason why in the first half, Georgia only put up 6 points on Clemson in the first half. There was a reason for that. Now, when they substituted and they put Nate Frazier in the game, and obviously Clemson's offense kept stalling and stalling and stalling. I mean, eventually the dam broke, and the run game opened up, the offense opened up, and then there you go. You score, 28 points in the second half, and you win 34-6. So, I mean, that's the whole point I'm making. So now we got Alabama coming up. Well, Alabama's got dudes everywhere. I mean, they got guys like Kentucky has, but they also got them in the two deep
And the secondary.
and the secondary. So now you get a better secondary and a more deep defensive line to deal with, and you got offensive line issues already.
Will he coach a slugfest? Will he coach a slugfest at Alabama?
Yeah, I mean, it's and then you get Texas.
Right.
Texas has athletes all over the field. We all recruit the same guys and offer the same scholarships. Then Ole Miss, they added a lot of guys in the portal on the front seven, like Walter Nolan and the kid from Florida and everything like that. They got dudes too, and you play them on the road just like you did Kentucky. And unless someone's going to tell me Kroger Field's more hostile than Tuscaloosa and Texas and all that, you're going with bigger fans, a bigger capacity and everything like that. So it only gets harder. It doesn't get any easier.
Well, that's the beauty of the integration of teams like Texas and OU into the conference and the expansion of the conference, as well as the 12-team playoff, is that there are going to be some teams fall off, and there are going to be some teams get hit hard.
SEC least to hide behind like they've had for the last 10 years.
Right. There's nothing to hide behind. You're going to play at least three of the powerhouses, no matter what team you are in the SEC.
Unless you're Texas, you somehow avoid that.
And Missouri.
They avoid a lot.
Missouri avoided a lot as well.
Yeah, but Missouri. Yeah. Missouri is going to get smoked in the middle of their schedule, and then
somehow Missouri plays at UMass. I still want someone to explain that one to me. If y'all can find that out, how that happened, that'd be great.
There was a home and away. They had to have signed a home away a long time
ago. It was probably a 4x1 home and away.
Yeah,
something. I don't know. I don't know how UMass ends up as the home team.
I still don't. I mean, there's no
West
way
Virginia
Alabama
ended up at Marshall.
Oh, did Missouri play? No. Yeah, the SEC played an SEC only schedule in COVID, right?
Now hold on. Now Oklahoma went to Tulane recently.
Well, Oklahoma was supposed to go to Tulane.
The Big 12 did too. The Big 12 also played outside their conference. So both the SEC, but some games were canceled by the other conferences. So like, for example, Kentucky had like 4 cupcake games and only got to play like 2 of them or something like that.
Yeah.
So what happened, Tim? They didn't end up going.
Yeah, they were supposed to go to Tulane in 21, and then because of the hurricane, they had to play the game in Norman.
Doesn't Tulane play in the? Does Tulane still play in the New Orleans Superdome or no?
No.
Okay.
No, they have their own little. They have a little on-campus stadium though.
Tulane did just host Kansas State though.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a big game.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. Georgia probably just had a bad game. Kentucky's a good team. I don't know if you guys know this, but Georgia scored 20 or less in each of the last 5 games up there in Kroger Field. So for whatever reason, Mark Stoops kind of has, that Georgia offense number for whatever reason. Maybe that's the game he's just most motivated to do well for whatever reason.
Well, look, I'm not saying that, when they play Kentucky, obviously it's a physical game. Obviously, all that stuff happens and everything like that. And I am not saying that at all. But even if you take the Kentucky game out of it, I mean, realistically, Georgia this year, they've played 12 quarters of football, and six of them have been duds. All 4 quarters in the game against Kentucky was a dud offensively. The first half against Clemson was a dud. And then, their second game, they played Tennessee Tech in Athens. I mean, for fuck's sake.
Yeah. Georgia has question marks for sure. Mike Bobo's a problem. Mike
Bobo is
big games.
Put it this way: if Todd Monken was there at Georgia with Carson Beck, oh God. I mean, Todd Monken was so good. The man made the midget Stetson Bennett look good and won 2 natties. That's why I give that guy so much credit.
It made people lose their mind and actually think that they could compare Stetson Bennett to guys like Baker Mayfield.
Well, Bowers is gone too, guys. Now Bowers was a weapon across the middle for him.
And Oscar Delp is really good. Is a really good player, but obviously he's no Brock Bowers.
Yeah, no, I mean, Brock Bowers has proven in the first 2 weeks of the NFL. I mean, he's a pretty damn good player. I mean,
the other thing, though, here is I really don't understand how Georgia's wide receiver room is so mediocre. I mean, it's not good.
Oh, it's awful. They recruit that position.
They tried to bring in Rob Thomas to help themselves, but that room is not good, man. Like, they have guys that are 4 and 5 stars, but they're just not good football players.
Is that because they was featuring tight ends, and while they were featuring tight ends, recruits were
you
looking
can
at them
play. I mean, Robert, you can play 12 personnel and still have 2 really good wide receivers on the field, though.
That is true, and you could also play 3 and 1 and feature a star receiver. And
well, they tried to get this transfer tight end from Stanford, the Ben Yursick, and he's playing for him. But dude, to be honest with you, I've seen him play. Dude ain't done anything.
No.
He's a blocking tight end.
Yeah, I mean, he's done. But at Stanford, he was actually pretty productive. I was kind of, when they got him, I was like, shit, that dude may be pretty good for Georgia.
Now their running back that was supposed to be the man this year actually transferred to Kentucky. He's been injured and hasn't even played down yet. But the running back that they thought they were going to have actually transferred to Kentucky. And so maybe the ones that are coming up now, from what I've seen in that game, they weren't all-world running backs. They were certainly solid, but they weren't, like, dominant.
You know,
and hasn't had a dominant running back since DeAndre Swift. I mean, they've been fine. They've been all right. I mean,
they haven't had a bell cow or anything like that at all. Like, nobody that, that's going to get you out of a jam type of guy. They really haven't had
that. Like, Mac was decent. Like,
ATN is solid, but he's not grain-breaking.
Well, going to ETN, the thing to further reiterate my point about Mike Bobo, Georgia scored 1 offensive touchdown in the game against Kentucky. ETN had 79, 80 yards rushing in the game when it was all said and done. He got 40 of those yards on that one drive that led to a score for Georgia. And that further proves my point of how much that offense needs that running game for everything to go. There's not a world where Georgia's going to rush for, under 3 yards a carry or under 4 yards a carry, and then they're going to bomb you downfield for 300-plus passing yards through the air and, throw up 28-plus. That's just not who they are.
Last year, they were able to facilitate the ball to Brock Bowers at points until he got hurt, and Oscar Delp played well. And then you had who's that one white kid that's lad?
McConkey?
Yeah. And they've got a very different dynamic right now. They don't really have the pass catchers that they have had.
No, not at all. No, they don't have anybody who can really and truly just create separation the way McConkey and Bowers could last year.
Yeah, I mean, and then the year before they had A.D. Mitchell, and
right,
so it's a very different looking Georgia team. Now they were missing a couple offensive linemen, as were noted. I don't know how good this team's going to be. I thought coming into the year that 9-3 was like a real possibility for them. 9-3, 10-2, and by the way, that would get them to the college football playoff most likely. At 10-2 for sure, 9-3 possibly. Georgia's still a good team. They're a team to look out for. I don't know how I feel about them going to Bama. I didn't feel good about that for them going into the season. I feel worse about it than I did before the season started.
Yeah.
Them versus Texas, I think they're going to catch Texas very, very sore the following week, because you got to keep in mind that's the week after Red River, and OU and Texas punch each other in the mouth in a way that you don't see very many rivalry games do. So they're going to be pretty beat up going into the game against Georgia. So Georgia might be able to take advantage of that, but whether Texas wins or not in Red River, but they're going to be hurting.
Yeah, I just saw today Georgia lost Tate Ratledge in the game against Kentucky. I mean, he's done for like 6 weeks, I think, and he was their best offensive lineman, and he was the one with the most experience. He was a preseason All-American, everything. And,
all right, so guys, I'm going to open door number 4, and then after that, we're going to talk about the SEC game of the week.
Here they come, your team sucks donkey balls. Bouncing, 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 here they come. Open your mouth and get a big bunch. Suck them, suck them, suck them, suck them, suck them, suck them, suck them.
All right, guys. So it looks like South Carolina sucks donkey balls, right? They were riding high after crushing Kentucky at home, and then LSU comes into their house during the sandstorm and takes them down. Why do they suck donkey balls, Tim?
I don't think that's fair. I wouldn't have picked Shane Beamer. I think that they lost this game ultimately for 2 very major reasons. The first reason being that their quarterback, who is a running quarterback, injured his ankle right before halftime when they had a big lead, and it forced them to become one-dimensional for something that they're not good at doing. So instead, they just had to keep handing the football off over and over again, which, Sanders broke another long run, another long one later in the game, but it really hurt what they were doing on offense. And then secondly, they had 2 pick sixes called back by some, even if you think they're correct, I mean, they're very borderline calls, and that's 2 pick sixes taken off the board. I mean, that's a humongous deal in football. I mean, that's a minimum of a 14-point swing for South Carolina that just got erased. I don't think it's fair for Shane Beamer to be on this list, and I don't understand why he's here, because he played against a team that supposedly was a playoff contender and a really good football team, and he has a.
I mean, at one point, but LSU, nobody thinks they're a playoff contender today, or even before
for sure. I didn't think they were before the season, but let's say, who has better players? Let's just keep it a buck. Who has better players, LSU or South Carolina?
LSU.
Oh,
sure.
definitely LSU. But South Carolina was at home, though.
Yeah.
So there is that.
Sure, and listen, I'm not.
But you do know. But Tim, you know how this works. We don't put teams on here because we think they deserve it. We just put shit on here that'll provoke good conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree. I agree with Tim what he's saying on all points. I mean, I know if you watch the game, South Carolina. Look,
well, here's the problem. Here's the problem, guys. Dr. Balls he's the chief picker on this now, and he was still sore over that fucking South Carolina Kentucky game.
That's right.
Hey, I didn't think they were going to beat y'all like that. I really didn't. I didn't know. I don't know what the fuck happened that day.
It was a horrible lack of effort. I
have no idea, but rest assured, y'all made up for it the very next week against Georgia. But yeah, no, I mean, look, if Lenora Sellers doesn't get hurt, South Carolina wins that game. 100%. Everybody knows it. Like, if you don't know it, you're either an LSU fan or you're a Clemson fan that just hates South Carolina.
Or you didn't watch the game.
Yeah, who didn't watch the game? Like, if you watch the game, Lenore Sellers doesn't go down, LSU gets probably blown out, honestly, because they couldn't stop anything. LSU's defense is still Swiss cheese this year. It's not good.
By the way, so is USC's.
Yes. I mean, it's not that great. And look, in the pick sixes that were called back, need I remind everybody, Doug, listen to this. The head official for the Clemson LSU game was none other than our good friend Jason Autry. Jason Autry's referee crew. The famous referee crew that called Alabama for 17 penalties in Neyland Stadium in 2022 and decided to throw the phantom pass interference call after Kool-Aid McKinstry had reached like the 50-yard line and he intercepted it at the goal line. So I have no sympathy at all when people are talking about like officiating, because that crew, if Jason Autry is a part of the referee crew for your game, you are fucked. Get ready for a ton of penalties, everything to be called known to man. It'll be the ugliest, most disgusting football game. So I feel the South Carolina fans' sympathy because the officiating was horrible. It was,
and the targeting calls. The targeting calls are out of hand, man. I saw them where they were just good football hits getting called targeting, and some of them led with their head and their helmet. I know you're not supposed to spear anybody no more, but man, I just feel the targeting calls has gotten out of hand. Now we want to protect players, but man, a good hit is a great hit.
Yeah, I feel what you're saying there. My biggest thing is, like, South Carolina seals this game with that last pick six of Nussmeier, even if you think the first one was a good call. And I will say one of two things, and here's where Shane Beamer does get a little bit discredit. Let me ask you how often it's a good idea to headhunt the quarterback after an interception in today's football. Is that a good idea?
No,
it's a stupid-ass idea.
Yeah.
And the guy who did that deserves to hang out with Shane Beamer for the first half next week, because that is just full-blown stupidity.
Yeah, you should never even touch him. Like, you literally don't even need to bother him, because, like, it's not like Garrett Nussmeier was going to hawk that dude down by any means.
Yeah, so South Carolina, who doesn't have an offense anymore unless Sanders gets lucky and breaks another one off, just took a touchdown off the board. So they basically just turned Nussmeier's interception into like a turnover on downs deep into their own end zone, in their own end. They changed what that was. it switched from being a momentum shifting dagger to, hey, guess what? You still can't do anything on offense because the only thing you have is off tackle left. That's all. That's your offense right now.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I mean, yeah, Brian Kelly. It makes it bad if LSU would have lost that game, dude. Brian Kelly's seat would have got so damn hot, very hot. It makes it bad. He lives to fight
Maybe he could
another
have blamed
day.
another player, bro. Maybe he could have thrown Nuss under the bus this time.
Yeah, I mean, look, the reality of the situation with LSU, and I think Brian Kelly is a good coach. This has nothing to do with that. LSU is not a good football team this year. They are not. There is no world they're improving. They're actually going to go 10-2 or something like that.
Do you remember some conversation that some guy had with you about this prior to the
season? Well, we called this. We posted the record in Frenzy. Look, I'm seriously looking at maybe 7-5 for LSU. And by the way, I did have them winning South Carolina game. They still got more L's to come. This isn't the last time that they're going to suffer something. This season is not going to go well for LSU. They have one receiver. Kyron Lacey's the only receiver they got. You already lost your running back for the year. Now they think some new freshman who happened to go off against South Carolina is going to save the day. Nussmeier throws the ball all around the yard, but he's going to be a turnover machine, so you might as well get prepared for that. And the defense is still Swiss cheese, and Harold Perkins' best year was his freshman year, and he hasn't gotten better ever since. So, I mean, what have you done? All you did was bring in Blake Baker to work with the same underwhelming pieces you had last year, and you still have no defensive line depth. Your defensive line's horrible.
Yeah, I agree.
It's not going to be a great year for LSU. It's really not. And anyone that disagrees, you're either just a blind homer or you're fucking retarded.
Shannon Russell would disagree.
Well, I mean, watch the games. We all watch the same games, do we not?
Doug,
do we all not watch them?
Doug, on a side note, you remember the 2019 LSU-Oklahoma playoff game where you, Shannon, Dane, and Landon convinced me to go on and to do a segment with Shannon Russell that I didn't want to do, where I picked OU to win even though I didn't think they would win.
Oh yeah.
Alex Bryan, for some reason, believed
I remember it.
that I actually think that I actually picked OU to win that game. Can y'all please clarify that I actually was not truly picking OU?
No, you never did that. No, you're a homer, but not that bad.
Well, I mean, yeah, it wouldn't have been good for the segment for you to come in and say, Shannon, you're right. OU's going to lose. No.
It was beautiful. We appreciate you, Tim. You are awesome. I don't know
man,
what to say.
guys, how about the biggest fucking game of the SEC this week?
Oh,
there's old reliable Sugar Bowl MVP.
Hey, it's the boy right there.
There he is, the one game wonder.
Hey, he was really good in Tennessee as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he threw for 300-something yards.
You know, that's right. Back in the day, y'all actually used to play Tennessee, if I remember, on y'all had some out of conference game with them. I remember because I think y'all played them in Neyland, and Baker Mayfield, I think, won the game. If it was either the last second or an overtime or something like that.
It was both.
Okay.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield entered the third quarter 8 of 25 for 2 interceptions, and then he just decided to become Baker Mayfield in that fourth quarter and then won the game.
Oh, that was nice of him.
Yeah, it was pretty cool because we didn't know what Baker Mayfield was at that time. We were like, this is a walk-on guy from Texas Tech, bro, and he did do good against Akron, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, obviously, I will Tim, this is your game. You take the floor.
Okay. I think that there's a bit of a narrative right now that that Tennessee is just gonna kind of show up in Norman, and then they're just gonna pillage and rape everyone's wives, and then head back to Knoxville with a bunch of rubies in their truck. And it is the craziest concept I've ever seen in my entire life. And I just want you guys to be aware of what is called a sucker's bet in Vegas, okay? A sucker's bet in Vegas is when they know that the casual fans will vote. They will basically vote with a line, even if it's egregious. Tennessee -7 to 7.5 is a sucker's bet. You want to know how much of a sucker's bet it is? Landon, let me tell you. 83% of the spread pick right now is on Tennessee. Okay, You want to know what the percent of the money is that's on Oklahoma in the game? The overall money. The number of bets, 83% on Tennessee. You want to know who like Oklahoma has 40% of the money. So the smart people are taking Oklahoma and the points, okay?
I'm one of those people, for the record.
Yeah. And then you go to the money line, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Money line is like 88% Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
And OU has 35% of the money line bet of money line money with 12% of the bet.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a sucker's bet. The smart people are taking the Sooners, and they should. Do you know why? I'll tell you why. One, Josh Heupel's offense does not have a worse matchup that they could play against from a defensive perspective. Brent Venables' defense is designed to beat these offenses, okay? He's designed to suffocate these offenses because – and what's the best thing against tempo, right? A really good middle linebacker who's going to put all his guys in the right position, okay? You know what else is really good against tempo teams and tempo offenses like this? Helmet communication.
Very true.
So,
Very true.
to me, this is Oklahoma could very well lose this game, and I'm not going to pretend like Oklahoma has looked like they're world beaters this year. Offensively, they have struggled, but defensively, this is a really, really bad matchup for Tennessee's offense. Oklahoma is a chaotic defense. They put you behind the sticks. They will make you go 3 and out and make you give Oklahoma the ball back in 45 seconds with this offensive philosophy. Oklahoma has NFL players at all 3 levels of their defense. They're deep. They can rotate 8 to 10 guys on the defensive line. They have a pass rusher who just had 3 sacks last week, a pass breakup, 3 more pressures, and a strip sack fumble. Okay. That's on one side. And then they have Danny Stutzman, who's inarguably the best linebacker in college football this year, alongside the fact that everyone talks about Peyton Bowen and Billy Bowman. You know who the number 1 rated safety is so far this year? Robert Spears-Jennings. Okay. Oklahoma entered the season thinking that Robert Spears-Jennings was their number 2 at best, but probably number 3 safety, and he's been even better than that. Kendall Dolby, who is the cheetah, he missed last week due to concussion protocol. He's already been cleared. He's going to play. I'm sorry for breaking that here. He's going to play. And he's a top 60 draft pick. He plays basically a hybrid corner nickel. He plays the Isaiah Simmons position, if you guys remember that guy from Clemson.
Oh, yeah.
And he is really, really good. This is going to be a very tough matchup for Tennessee on defense, or for their offense. Where it's going to be interesting and where Tennessee can win this game is if Oklahoma doesn't get right on offense. Oklahoma hasn't been right on offense all year. They're sub 100 in offense, which I don't even know that I even have been alive the last time that's happened. Now, we're only 3 games in, and Oklahoma's been missing 7 guys in their 2 deep on the offensive line and missing and they kind of got surprised to start the season that 4 of their top 5 wide receivers were also unavailable. This week, Oklahoma is expected to get back several offensive linemen. I don't know if they would be very happy with me if I shared the starting combination from today's practice, so I won't do that. But it's very good news for Oklahoma fans. I'll tell you that much.
Oh, come
And
on.
also,
You should. Don't you do that. This is you suck donkey balls, damn it.
Hey, there's
also,
only right now there's only 4 confirmable people listening, and 3 of them are retarded. Go ahead and share it.
I will say Nick Anderson will be back this week. One of the top wide receivers in college football. He hasn't played a snap this season. He will be back this week against Tennessee, which means that Tennessee, who their secondary is not great on tape. I'll just leave it at that. It's not good. They have a starting safety who looks like he's straight out of Dabo's camp.
God,
it's going to be tough if Oklahoma's able to play the offense that we figured they'd be able to play to start this year. Because let me tell you what's not easy to do. Okay, if you've played football, you know that there are there's one thing when it comes to injuries, okay? You have to have depth, but you can't have 7 guys out on your offensive line, but you especially can't start a freshman 4th-string center for 3 games and think that everything's just going to go great. All right? That's what Oklahoma's had to do. Oklahoma has a redshirt freshman center named Joshua Bates, who I think has a very bright future, but it's not right now. And he has struggled very badly. He's not supposed to be playing right now. He's been forced to play. I give him a lot of credit because I'm sure this has been a tough time for him. But Oklahoma will have a different center. Maybe one with a bunch of career starts that you guys might know as the number 1 rated center in college football last year, Branson Hickman. He sounds like he may very well be available.
Center play indeed matters, right, Doug?
Oh, it really matters. You guys,
maybe more than any other position left.
And we're also sharing this with the whole college football frenzy world, by the way.
Yeah.
So,
I hope a lot of Clemson fans are in here.
So yes. Oh, there's also another center that will be available if Branson's not. Who was a first-team all-freshman, all-American at App State, and handled Tennessee's defensive tackles pretty well. Or I'm sorry, A&M's defensive tackles quite well. But the matchup in this game, Oklahoma's defense is going to hold Tennessee down in this game. Tennessee's not going to score a bunch of points in this game. Newsflash, whenever they average around 4 yards per carry, they typically lose the football game. And that's most likely going to happen in terms of what they average yards per carry. Now, that doesn't guarantee they lose because there is a factor that's different this time. They have Nico Iamalava. That was wrong. Don't care.
I think as good as I can do.
It's Nico, I'm about to leave you.
Yeah.
So they've got a young quarterback who's a good player. I watched a bunch of tape from last year and into this year just to kind of get a feel. The first half of NC State was a lot different than I think people understand the perception of that game to be. There was a really silly mistake by Grayson McCall that ended up going for a pick 6 the other way. Shouldn't have happened. Should have actually been a touchdown on that play for NC State to tie it up right before half. Early in the game, NC State was really having a hard time protecting Nico against a 3-man rush in this game. Tennessee's offensive line has some good players on it, but they're new players for this offense. And I think people kind of forget that a little bit. They haven't really had to do much. They've played Chattanooga and Kent State. Kent State would probably lose to Chattanooga, okay? Just so we understand. I want you guys to understand how bad Kent State is, okay? You should put like $500 if you just have liquid money on Penn State covering 49. Okay? But aside from that.
So let me say that Josh Heupel, above any fucking SEC coach, has the biggest nostrils I've ever fucking seen in my life. And I know he's an OU guy, but you could fit a fucking baseball up in one nostril.
Man, I feel bad for that.
I'm not
guy.
joking.
He needs to go to the gym.
That's a big fucking nostril.
But
oh yeah.
Josh Heupel knows what this is. That's the one thing that does worry me about this, because if Tennessee was coming in as high as their fans are, they would be humbled really bad with this game. But Josh knows what this is going to be. He's not an idiot. He knows he's going to come in there and it's going to be an absolute slogfest. I know he knows that. I know he's not arrogant enough to think he's walking in there and just, going scorched earth and all this. The last time Brent Venables went up against a Josh Heupel offense was the Russell Athletic Bowl, and Oklahoma had Trevor Knight, Sterling Shepard, Samaje Perine, 4 offensive linemen that went to the NFL, and they got held to 6 points, 40-0 before they scored. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
I echo all Tim's points on this. Look, I'm not saying that Tennessee's a bad football team or anything like that. I think Tennessee is a very good football team. If Oklahoma wins, I think it's a good win and everything. But look,
I think Tennessee's got to go and play a great fucking game, and Oklahoma Oklahoma can't play up to potential. I mean, that
Yeah.
Tennessee needs this.
I just the only thing with Tennessee that I just caution everybody on, Tennessee does this every year. They have a very good offense. They start out and they play some opponents that are just, not that great. Look, what they did to NC State did not shock me a single bit. Tim can vouch for it. I told him my bet of the week was Tennessee in the spread over NC State. I think NC State's a horrible football team. I think they are. Look, that's just my opinion. And so far this year, I'm not really wrong. They were in a dogfight with Western Carolina. They got blown out by Tennessee, and then they were in a dogfight last week against Louisiana Tech. They're not that great, and that's okay. That's okay. They're not great. But all you can do when you play a bad team is beat the fuck out of them. And to Tennessee's credit, that is what they did. They did the same thing to Chattanooga. Last week against Kent State, look, guys, they're up 30-0, and they're kicking an onside kick. Please do not sit here and tell me Tennessee is so good and they have this unstoppable offense because they hung 70 on Kent State and they were having to kick onsides up 30-0. They're not that good. They just wanted style points for the fans and for you to cover. I guess Josh Heupel gambles on the side. If he does, kudos to him because he helped me win that bet. But either way, I in no way think they're just going to walk into Oklahoma. The offense just going to hum up and down the field, and Oklahoma's just going to spit and sputter, and the score's going to be 42-10, and it's just going to be a rout. I just don't believe that. I really don't. I think it's going to be a really good football game. Tennessee's front seven is pretty solid. I'm not saying it's not. Breaking news, though, Tennessee has a good front seven every year. They've always done well at stunting and stopping runs, but their secondary is cheeks. It's always been cheeks. It's not going to change. The only reason that it hasn't been exposed the first 3 weeks because they haven't played a quarterback worth of shit. They haven't played anything. Nothing. The NC State game got so out of hand until there was nothing they could even do to even try to expose it.
And by the way, before just so you guys understand, it's 10-3. And NC State's moved the ball pretty well most of this first half at this point. We're about 3 minutes in the second quarter, left in the second quarter, and that pick six happens. You know what was just happening before that? They handed the ball to Hollywood Smothers like 4 times in a row and gashed them for a bunch of yards. Got all the way inside the red zone in 3 plays. Grayson McCall had a guy wide open for a touchdown because the guy who had the pick six vacated his zone. But because an edge rusher managed to get by, Grayson had to try to throw. He was trying to throw this because I'm trying to explain this very football IQ thing in a way that's like not super confusing. But basically, he's supposed to be at his landmark, which is roughly the goal line, to make a throw over the top of him very difficult. And instead, he comes up, which is way out of position, which actually leaves his man wide open for a touchdown. Okay. But he gets lucky because Grayson knew that the guy was supposed to be at his landmark. And so he's throwing. So he decides to take the underneath throw to the running back. And to do that, he had to just get it over the hand of the edge player that managed to come unblocked. And so he's just throwing it over the top of him because the guy left his zone and vacated it. He just happened to be like right there to pick it off and took it for a touchdown. So like it was one of those scenarios where in football, I'm sure anyone who's played football before knows that when a coach says, if you're going to do it wrong, do it 100% wrong. He did it 100% wrong, happened to be in the wrong spot, right time, and he took it back for 6.
There you go.
And sometimes that happens. And that's what happened in that game. That flipped the game. NC State had to play a very specific way in that game. And getting behind 17-3 was not the specific way that they needed. And then on top of it, NC State followed it up by trying to take it out of the end zone and got tackled at the 10.
Sure. Look, I mean, I am not saying Tennessee cannot win this game because they absolutely can. It is football. Anything can happen.
Well, here's what we can do.
I think Oklahoma's going to have a good game.
So me and Dr. Balls can't pick on. Me and Dr. Balls can't pick on this game tonight.
Yeah,
we can't pick on it because we've got the Friday segment coming up, and we'll be picking on it. But you guys can pick on it. So let's hear some score predictions, guys.
Look, I'm taking Oklahoma in the spread to cover. I mean, I've already picked them to cover, but Oklahoma is at home. They're in Norman. You know, it's a night game. You know, that place is going to be rocking. And, you know, all it takes is a few 3-and-outs for Tennessee, and next thing you know, they're down 14-0. I mean, that's all it takes when you run the offense like they do. I mean, yeah, it has its perks, but it has its faults too. And if you got to ask for me a coach that I think is going to go in there and, it's going to, stop that thing. I mean, Brent Venables is going to be one of those coaches that I would put money on to be able to do something like that because he is a defensive-minded guy. And look, they're not going to fully stop it. I don't want to, because you're not just going to fully stop it to the point. But they're gonna get some points and stuff like that. I am not saying that. I just don't buy into this notion that everybody thinks, like Tim was talking about the suckers bet. Like everybody is gonna load up on Tennessee -7. Everybody. And Vegas is gonna laugh their ass off because it's too easy to say, well, Tennessee's gonna win by at least 7. Well, why? Well, dude, you see what they did against Kent State and North Carolina State and Chattanooga? I mean, yeah, I did, but who gives a shit? Auburn beat Alabama A&M 73-3. Did that matter against California? No. No, it didn't at all. It did not at all.
That's why
and
they suck donkey
Chattanooga and
balls.
Alabama A&M and Kent State. I mean, dude, flip a coin. I mean, come on. They're the same teams. So I'm gonna take. I'll say this.
So you taking Oklahoma to cover?
I'm taking Oklahoma to cover, and then if I'm going to take Oklahoma to cover, I might as well say they're going to win. So I'll say Oklahoma wins 34-28.
So I think that part of this I think you guys need to hear the perspective of just how historic this spread is. Okay, they've been keeping track of spreads since 1978. They have a record since 1978. Okay. Oklahoma has never been more than a 4-point underdog at home as a ranked team since at least 1978. So this is a historic margin, okay? Do you know how there is not a lot of times that you get to be the coach at the University of Oklahoma and you're going to play a home game, okay, in front of a raucous crowd with college game day there at 7 p.m. You have a veteran defense, a bunch of veteran guys. You're getting a shot in the arm with 6 or 7 guys coming back off injury. And you get to tell these guys that this other team, which, by the way, on paper doesn't have as much talent as you, is favored to beat your ass. That doesn't happen very much. And I don't think people understand what that means. You guys saw what it meant last year in the Cotton Bowl. I'm pretty sure all you guys were quite aware of what happened the last time that happened. And that was a different scenario. You know what I mean? In the Cotton Bowl. This is the ultimate level of disrespect. I think, watching these interviews, these guys are very confident in what's going to happen in this game. Seth Luttrell has held a lot back. He's not like Josh Heupel in the sense that Josh Heupel says, I don't give a damn. I want to score 70, in a game against somebody who doesn't matter. OU's held some stuff back on offense. They've been hurt a little bit. That doesn't excuse how bad they've been. But there's a lot of reason to be optimistic if you're an Oklahoma fan for that offense. My bold prediction in this game is the beginning of this game. Tennessee is going to start with the ball, and Billy Bowman's going to take one back for a touchdown on the very first drive of this football game. It's going to set the tone. Tennessee's going to play from behind most of the game. And I think Oklahoma's going to win the game. I still think Tennessee will do some things to keep it within reach for them, but I think it's going to end up being 31-20 Oklahoma. Fairly comfortable statement win for the Sooners. Narrative flipping win for the Sooners. That defensive line, man, this is the deepest defensive line at OU in a long time, man. It's a special group. I just don't think they're going to be able to run the football effectively. And so when you're not able to run the football effectively, and by effectively I mean at an efficient clip, I do think Sampson, who's a very good running back, is going to make a handful of plays in this game. He's going to have a chunk 20-yard run here or there. But as a whole, I think this is going to be a very tough one. Oklahoma has NFL defensive backs all over the place. And I'm going to say this, and people might get pissed off at me. I've been watching the tape. There's one guy on that the wide receiver room is a good Saturday college football wide receiver room, but that is not a wide receiver room with a bunch of Sunday guys on it. Squirrel White, Brew McCoy, those are not Sunday guys, all right? Oklahoma has Sunday guys back there. They have guys that are going to play. They're going to keep playing football for a while. And, maybe a guy like a Brew McCoy who is a really good athlete, maybe he can be on a practice squad or something, but those are not NFL guys. Brazel from Tulane,
He has a chance to be an NFL guy. He has the right size, frame, athleticism, blah, blah, blah. But Squirrel White, Brew McCoy, those aren't NFL guys, man. They're just not. I think this is – if it gets ugly, which I don't think it will, I think it would be more likely for Oklahoma to make it ugly. And the reason why is they're getting so many guys back on offense. Mm-hmm. If it goes the way I think, OU's offense will look better but not great, and both teams will grind it out, but OU will eventually win because I think that being at home is going to matter. And let's be honest here, guys. Nico has not played a road game yet in his career. This is going to be his first road environment.
Being at home always matters, especially
it's a big road game. Yeah, and look, I mean, I'll say this too for Oklahoma. I mean, look, and Doug and I can attest to this, and Robert in their last matchup. I mean, look, when you got O-line problems, I mean, Alabama had offensive line issues in South Florida. We looked like we couldn't block a damn ferry. I mean, and we couldn't. We looked awful. We looked literally terrible. And look, I mean, that was just against South Florida, who might be a pretty decent team, but still, I mean, it doesn't really. That's not the point. Kentucky's playing Georgia. Obviously, I just noted, Georgia's had some O-line problems. Man, Kentucky exposed it. It was a 13-12 game. That's Georgia, Kentucky, number one team in the country playing Kentucky. So, I mean, when you're Oklahoma and you got O-line problems, I mean, yeah, the first 3 games, hey, look, guys, they might not light the world on fire and look like the greatest show on turf. I mean, hey, breaking news. But they're getting those guys back, and especially when you got center problems and you're going to get the center back, you can't tell me that's not going to help. That can only help. Or you can't tell me it's going to hurt. That can only help them. And also
being on the biggest stage helps too.
Yeah, I mean, you're at home too. You're the home team. I mean, crowds rocking. I mean, look, man. Like I said, we just played, Georgia, Kentucky in Kentucky. It's a road game for the number one team in the country. Everything shit was not sweet. Shit was not sweet at all. It was not sweet even in the slightest bit. So look, things can happen, and again, I am not saying Tennessee cannot win this game. I am not. Look, I took Oklahoma spread, so I might as well just have fun with it and take them to win anyway. But I think it's just going to be a really good football game. I don't think that this narrative that Tennessee's just going to win by 4 touchdowns because they've looked good on TV to everybody against Kent State. I mean, give me something else for that. I mean, come on, man. Just give me something else other than that lame excuse.
Well, how about this? Everyone's talking about welcome Oklahoma to the SEC. How about welcome Tennessee to Oklahoma? Welcome the SEC to Oklahoma.
Let's end the show on this note, guys.
Well, I mean, when was the last time Tennessee played Oklahoma and someone let me know what the score was? Did Tennessee win?
No.
Well, did the SEC patch matter?
Not really.
Exactly. So case closed.
All right, so let's end the show on this note. Fuck those Vols, right?
Fuck them.
Yeah.
Fuck them. Later,
see y'all.
Your team sucks donkey balls. They played like a mongoloid. You might be fired by Monday and your wife is a street whore.
Your Team Sucks Donkey Balls is a presentation of Smacking Off the podcast. Streaming every week for another victim as we kick them while they are down.